what you know about your first paranormal experience.
Time my sister was very depressed and she didn't shower, she didn't do anything. It was very hard to get her out of bed. Something told me to sleep next to her that night, so I did. So I went into a deep sleep and I had an outer body experience that I could see myself sleeping, I could see her sleeping. It was my first time ever doing that, so I scraped the hell out of my arm. So as I'm watching this, I can see a dark shadow like hovering over her while she's sleeping and getting into her brain. I talked to it, I told him that it needs to leave, it's not welcomed, and it went through the window, but it was a fight. And she woke up the next day and she got up, she went to shower, she was happy as hell.
Okay, so when I was younger, I did not like to stay at people's houses, and so I decided I'm gonna go stay at this girl's house. And when I got there, everything was normal, but then it started getting dark, and then I started getting scared. So I was like, I need to call my mom, and she's like, oh no, it's okay, I'll run you a bath. And I was like 7. So I was like, okay. And then she went to go run me a bath, and when I went to go walk to the bathroom, there was something standing behind her, and I was like, girl, like, there's something behind you. And she's like, wait, what? And then when I turned back around, it was gone. So then later that night, we were playing Barbies, and she was like, do you want to see something really cool that I can do? And I was like, yeah, okay, my little curious ass. And part 2.
Y'all ever heard about doppelgangers? That was my entire childhood. The year's 2001, I'm 4 years old. It's 6 a.m. and I want to go downstairs to watch cartoons because nobody else is awake. One episode into Scooby-Doo, the commercial hits, and I noticed that my mom is standing next to the TV. I don't know how I didn't notice her beforehand, but she was there now. So I'm 4 years old, I just roll with it. I'm like, hey mom, can I have some hot chocolate? Her response? Yes, her response was just a blank stare. She did not budge when I asked her that. Unusual behavior from my mother. So loving and caring, would bring me hot chocolate if I asked. So I'm like, peculiar. Let me ask again. She probably didn't hear me. Hey mom, can I have hot chocolate? Same response, and this one hit different. My heart sank and I sat back in the couch and realized that there are things in this world that I don't yet understand. This happened every morning for a week, but the catch was that I forgot it happened the morning previous each time. I actually had to force myself to remember. She would always disappear when my real mom came into the room. I have years of stories. She learned how to mimic my mom's voice, so...
Where to start? I have so many stories. So, just the rundown. My house is almost 200 years old. I'm the 4th generation of my family taking over this house. When my husband and I moved back in, we discovered rooms that were not common knowledge to my family. So, my first paranormal experience really isn't that interesting, but it's the first one that I remember. I was around 4 years old. I was going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, nobody else was awake, and I go in there, do my business. I'm leaving the bathroom, and as you can see, the bathroom is directly behind me. Now, directly in front of me, we have this window. I step out of the bathroom and make the mistake of looking in this general direction, and the blinds on the window just do this. It scared me so bad, I ran directly into my parents' room. My dad would always comfort me by saying, it's okay, it's just your grandma or your grandpa or whoever, they're just coming to visit you, there's nothing to be scared of. But of course it really didn't feel that way because I was scared. I seriously could make a whole series out of this. So like if you want to see more.
As a teenager, I was a real asshole, and my poor mom decided to put me in a psych hospital to try to get me some help. And this is the hospital. The hospital is downtown Albuquerque, and when it first opened in the 1920s, it was a tuberculosis hospital. After that, it was used for railroad workers. And then when I got in the early 90s, is the time that it was used as a psychiatric hospital. My room was on the 3rd floor, and I'm laying in bed, and to my left, the light from the window is shining, and to the right is the window. On the wall on my left, I see the outline of a person, and they're waving. They're trying to get my attention. I look over to the right, and I look through the window, and there's nobody there. As you can see, there's nothing behind this building. I then hear a hand slap against the window, and I look at the reflection on the wall, and he's waving like he's trying to get my attention. My room fills with the smell of burn. I don't know how else to explain it. And then he's gone just that fast.
If you don't already know, my house is almost 200 years old. It's incredibly haunted. I'm the 4th generation taking over on the house. Almost 10 years ago, my sister and I were sitting at the dining room table having a conversation. Out of nowhere, a breeze came in. And when the breeze came in, we noticed the smell of cigarette smoke and perfume. But nobody in the household smoked cigarettes. This was a pretty normal occurrence to us, and we used to think it was really cool, so we would kind of follow it around and see where it was going. Well, we ended up in the kitchen. Around the same time this had happened, my dad had just gotten a surgery for a hip replacement, and he wasn't even able to walk without a walker yet. Well, all of a sudden, my dad's bedroom door opens and he comes walking down the hallway with no walker. His face was pale as a ghost. And I was like, oh my God, Dad, what are you doing? He said, I saw your grandma sitting on the end of my bed and I followed her out here. And then she disappeared into the kitchen. He still has no recollection that this ever happened. Make sure to follow for more stories.
My first paranormal experience was when I was about 2 years old. My maternal grandmother passed away 2 days after my mother had my brother. So after she passed away, we were military brats. We were on our way back to Germany, and when we were on a plane, I looked out the window and I saw her on the wing of the plane, I guess to make sure that we make it to Germany safely. And I kept calling her name. I called her Gang Gang. And one of the ladies on the plane was like, well, what is she yelling? She said, my mother just passed and she sees my mother on the wing of the plane. And the woman got upset and she shut the blind. And I cried the whole ride, my mother said. And also I used to get out the car and hold my hand up as if I'm holding her hand. And I used to look up at the ceiling to greet her. So this is one of the reasons why I do say that children, small children, can see spirits, can speak with spirits, because it's a lived experience for me.
So if you don't already know, my house is almost 200 years old. I'm the 4th generation taking over on it, and it's very haunted. The story that I'm going to be talking about today happened in my bedroom. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I used to sleep in a different bedroom, but I moved from there because of the hauntings, and now I'm sleeping in here. I moved into this bedroom when I was a teenager, and in this corner of my bedroom, we used to have this. Yes, that's an old rocking chair. That rocking chair was made sometime in the 1860s. The reason the rocking chair was in my room was because my room used to be the guest room. The rocking chair was there as decoration. It used to sit in that corner until one night I woke up to the rocking chair rocking. Not only was the rocking chair rocking itself, but it was also getting stuck underneath the trim of my window and pulling itself back out. I was so terrified, I called my dad on the phone even though he was asleep in the next room because I was too afraid to get up out of my bed. So, if you want the chair, let me know. I don't want it. Follow along for more.
So when I was in about 5th or 6th grade, I lived in a house in Lima, Ohio, and it was very scary. Whatever ghost lived there did not like any kind of fighting or arguing or yelling of any sort, because every time one of us would do that, we would have a paranormal event. The worst one that I can remember, me and my sister were standing in the kitchen and we were arguing about who was going to mix instant pudding. My mom was taking a nap on the couch. It was a very long, narrow kitchen, so we were standing on one end, and then on the other end, we had the refrigerator, and then there was a wooden shelf hanging on the wall beside it that was bolted to the wall. You could hang on it and it would not come off the wall. All of a sudden, in the middle of our argument, it looked like somebody took their hand and swept everything off the top of the refrigerator onto the floor, and then that shelf that was bolted to the wall came flying off the wall towards us and then landed on the floor in front of us. Definitely do not recommend living with a ghost because it's terrifying.
Happened to me probably, I was around 20 years old and paranormal things had happened to me, but I never thought much of them, and I just could not explain this. So I was at a friend's house. I was helping him move. I was in the kitchen, and I turn around and I see one of his kids in the dining room. And I don't think much of it. I turn back around. I continue to pack. I turn around again, and the kid's not there, but it's not that far off. Like, it's a small apartment. So later on in the night, I ask him, like, how, like, if the kids are still asleep, and he's like, my kids aren't here. And I'm like, I deadass just saw your child in the living room. Like, he was just straight chilling. And he's like, that was not my child. He's like, and that's very weird that you saw him because I know exactly what you're talking about, but nobody has ever seen him other than me and my kids. Basically, then he tells me that this thing has been following him around since he was a child.
I was 22 years old, Redding, California. I modeled for a photographer friend of mine. She took me to this cement tunnel. Now, this tunnel was covered in graffiti, super cool, rad. I'm sitting on the cement ledge, doing my modeling thing, whatever, I'm no pro. She's snapping pictures, and I start to hear voices. I'm talking 2 men talking to each other, all muffled. They sound like they're underwater, but it's coming from the middle of the tunnel. I looked at her and I said, do you not hear that? Because she wasn't reacting to anything at all. She looked at me, she smiled, and she was like, you're not the first person to hear voices in this tunnel. I legit look everywhere. I run down the tunnel, I look on the other side, there's no one above, nothing. She then tells me that this used to be a place where they burnt Bibles and did animal sacrifices back in like the 80s. And I'm pretty sure 3 years prior to that, a homeless man was murdered there. What the